Good evening, guys. Thanks for attending another PAIRS webinar. It's Michael Gandy here, the captain of the ship. Got my first mate, Michael Gaskill, programmer, developer extraordinaire, my partner in crime, at the ready to my right, ready to. You guys have it. We keep the mics muted from you guys, other than ourselves, and that's only no disrespect. We realize you guys have families, dogs, things like that. So. If you during the course of this at all, please use the message box. It says questions, and then Michael can feed those to me, and we can stop intermittently. So we want to get going today. We got I sent you guys some test files. This is for people that so you can play along. Something that people have been liking. We were thinking about taking it away. Some people like it, so we're going to keep rolling with it. Want to show you, of course, we're still in the PAIRS free for now. I guess we're not that good with the calendar either, because I don't think March 2nd is going to change nothing for you. So just you've got time. Dive on in. The water's warm. Get used to the platform. Get your learning curve down. It's a process. I've been banging around on this platform myself for about 8 months. We've spent well over a year developing the platform. I've been using it consistently. I can tell you that if I could get the analysis back that I did 6 months ago, I'd love to take a shot at them better. There were times where you pull your hair out on a few, and it's just a process. You get better, you get more intuitive, you understand what you're doing, you identify problem sets of data a lot faster, and there's no way to get completely proficient in anything without just time. I mean, it's just a matter of plan. The trick is our platform is just extremely flexible, and it's actually low impact on your brain. You can actually do some things in here that are pretty powerful. That's what definitely separates us, as well as, of course, in the ocean of all things regression. We're the island that's sitting out there with the gold standard, paired sales analysis, and the iterative method, which is absolutely fantastic, scenario modeling, all that stuff. So for now, we're still doing the PAIRS free for now. You know what? At some point, we're going to throw something together, but you'll get an email. Don't worry about it for now. YouTube link. Bottom of any page says YouTube. That goes to our GandySoft channel on YouTube. Got a lot of content here. It's awesome for you. First one I want to point you to. Our analytics are provided by Google. Chrome is a Google-based browser developed by Google. You want to use Chrome to run PAIRS. It runs better. The analytics that are provided by Google are loaded through the browser. It's a memory resource hog when you use other browsers outside of that. You just don't get the best experience. Our PDF and PNG are not functional right now, and to be honest, we haven't even messed around with it because everybody discovered the Chrome web page screenshot tool, which we have a YouTube video on there. It's literally a minute 47. Shows you where to get it, and then you can employ that right there in my toolbar. It'll stay there. It takes 2 seconds to download. You can capture any part of a screen that you want and just copy it. I mean, it's that easy. So take advantage. I mean, there's a lot of recorded webinars here. Got this quick analysis. I take you front to back on a dry run. One appraisal I was doing last week. I mean, this includes, defining my market area, putting in my parameters, this, that, and the other, and actually probably an extra minute or two of playing around while I'm talking because I should have cut and run, but we still get it done. But got some awesome recorded webinars for you. I believe that this February 7th one we go into some hardcore scenario modeling, where we actually solve for a variable and build it into the model the proper way. Things you can't do in any regression that's out there. We found an adjustment, supported adjustment for lot size, extracted it out. Of course, I'm going to show where I got that information in my narrative, but I plugged it into the model and it lit up everything like a Christmas tree. Pairs and any regression platform was having a goofball time with sight, and we solved for it, and everything else came into line. So there's just a ton of content here. Another interesting one right here. Creating custom variables. Now we're going to get into this here in a second. Actually, we'll probably run through the first test together so that I don't sit here and drone on for 30 minutes before we get into anything. But this is again a 5-minute and 10. Shows you how to open up your data, where you need to do that at times to either clean data or create a variable that may not be accounted for in your MLS, such as a street view, which might be an adverse. Creating a remodeled field if your MLS doesn't have it. My MLS doesn't have it. My MLS has new construction and fixer-upper, so I'm not complaining too much. But some MLSs have a remodel field. If you do, Michael's mapped it and you have it available as a variable already. But it just shows you how to open up your text files in Notepad, paste it into Excel, and shows you how to create a new variable that you can use in the platform. So a lot of good content here. Listen, we're running and gunning here, guys. So we've been having a good time, reaching out with all the members, talking, going back and forth. It's a process. Just remember, any method that you rely on for the extraction or support for adjustments is all predicated on the data you feed into it. Our platform is no different. At PAIRS, we'll analyze the data you feed it. If the bad data equals bad results, garbage in, garbage out, that thing applies. Now, if you're in a locale where your MLS provides fairly decent data, normalized to a degree where people have some standardized, practices where they put in livable area properly and square foot, then you're not going to have too many options when you have, or too many needs, I should say, if you have robust sets of data, to necessarily dive in, unless you need to account for something that might be specific to your subject property, view locations, things like that. Again, so, we don't want you to have to spend a lot of time cleaning your data. You're the professional. You're the one in control of it, though, so you need to tell us or the platform if it's something that needs to be cleaned or accounted for. Also, this is predicated on your ability to explain the results, which, as far as the method goes, we're the gold standard paired sales analysis with the iterative method, which is nothing more than a fancy word for algebra. Whereas explaining intricately regression, a little bit more of a challenge, definitely. And remember, you get an output on regression, you're stuck with that number. With pairs, no, you're not stuck. You're never stuck. You can model all day long, inside, outside, and it's statistically supported. Your rules, your model, you're in control, and that's all that matters. So let's go ahead and, before I talk your ear off, let's go ahead and I want you guys to go to GandySoft.com, and I want you to log in. And if you fall behind in any way, please just message, and then Michael, I can slow it down. We can slow walk it a little bit. But the first thing I want you guys to do is I want you to highlight account, and I want you to go down to your profile. Before we start this, I want you to go to Edit Profile. Of course, you should have your username, your full name. This goes on your validation report, your money shot page. So you want to have that information in there so you can communicate it to your end user. But I want you guys to go to Preferences. I want you to make sure right now that when we're going to do these test data files together, if you don't have everything set up my way, you're going to get a different number. So I want you to have calculate 3/4 bath as a 3/4 bath. Why? That's how I like to do it. Now, you can go back when you're done and do a calculate a 3/4 to a full bath. I think it adds more balance when you have the 3/4 bath as a 3/4 bath in the adjustment modeling portion. It's definitely not wrong. It's definitely not wrong to round it to the full. So whatever your preference is, I'm just telling you from thousands of data sets, it does appear to me that having it configured as 3/4 to 3/4 is the best. It renders the best outputs, the most credible outputs. But you be the judge. So once you've got that set to calculate 3/4 bath as 3/4, go ahead and click Save. And this upper blue hyperlink to the left that says Create a New Analysis, go ahead and click that. Okay. So we're getting ready to get into one together. I'm gonna do the context and all that stuff. Doesn't matter what part of the country you're in. You're an appraiser. You know as long as I give you some context. Numbers are numbers. I can show you numbers. We're going to go in the submarket panel. We're going to look at prices per square foot. I'm going to define areas for you. You're going to get a feel. Doesn't matter where you're at. Numbers have consistency no matter where they're at. So go ahead and let's put the title of this one. I want you to do it as Stallion Mountain Test 1. So Stallion Mountain Test 1. We are a single-family residence, so keep that at single-family. And the effective date was actually yesterday, Friday, 2/27. So once you've done that, I want you to click Save. Now, I'm not going to go too fast. I do know I got a few people on here that a little bit green, so we're going to go slow. So we've got the details knocked out. Now we need to go to that Data Change button. I want you to click that big blue Change button. So now here's another important part. So on the source, I need you to drop down that to the Greater Las Vegas Association of Realtors. Why? Because I gave you data sets that are mapped to Greater Las Vegas Association of Realtors, where I'm at in the Valley of Sin City. So I need you to have that, or you're not gonna get the same results, or it's gonna be. It'll just be different. Trust me, just do that. Then I want you to click Upload. Now I want you to locate one of the files that I sent you that we titled Test 1 Data Text. You can double click it, or you can click it and then click the Open when it opens up. So it's up to you. And so now, the data's just been tabled and indexed. Again, I don't spend a whole lot of time here. Don't expect you to either. Everything that we see in here, guys, you get a much better vantage isolating them down inside the platform in the submarket filtering. So I want you to click in the upper, and then here, before you click, there's a pattern here I want you guys to see. The upper left-hand blue hyperlink goes backwards. The upper right-hand hyperlink goes forward through the process. So if you ever want to go back and revise your details, or if you're in the pairs panel and you want to go back to look at the data, left is back, right is forward. So I want you to go ahead and click on the upper right-hand blue hyperlink that says Analyze Pairs. Now, remember, what the rule of thumb, we never, ever, ever look at what jumps off the page. We don't, because it's a process. We've got to look at the data. We've got to see what's going on. We've got to go through market rate, apply filters, all that good stuff before we even. So anything that just hops off the page, you don't even pay attention. That's just the preliminary analysis with the data, but preliminary big time, because we have a whole bunch of stuff to do. So we've got that up. So I want to now give you guys the context, because there's going to be a lot of you that are not from my neck of the woods, so you're going to need a little bit of context. So let me go ahead and let's locate my subject property, hypothetical subject property, let's say. I'm saying hypothetical because one of my peers said hypothetical, so I'm wondering if that's what I need to do. That's okay, though. I don't fear the man. And you guys shouldn't either. When you get this kind of power, you'll see what I mean. It's just a process. Once you get there, you'll see what I mean. So here's our subject property. So just to give you the setup, I'll give you the overview of the whole Henderson over here. So we're up on the east side. This is not a master plan. It's a small planned golf course community up in the east side of town. It's called Stallion Mountain. It is gated. It is, it was one of the newer tracks in this area. There's newer stuff up here. It's segregated, though. It's not really flowing with. I mean, if this whole, it's got a community golf course, all that stuff. So of course, if I were to define it, I mean, I'm gonna stay inside exactly Stallion Mountain. I mean, that's just that market area. So just to show you, and it's not a huge tract, but we'll go ahead and we pulled the data, and there was enough. I'm Speed Demon. I don't mind slicing and dicing, so I had enough data that I was comfortable. It's very homogeneous data. I will tell you that. Very homogeneous. I think we probably got maybe 10 to 13 years spread in ages, all by the same builder, all single level properties, so very homogeneous. Now I'm going to go ahead and take out my subject property. And I think in this one I was hustling, guys, so I only pulled sales. Now, typically, I want you to pull listings, pendings, and contingents and all that good stuff with your sales. Those are not used in the adjustment extraction portion. However, the guru over here, Michael, is working on some whiz-bang stuff that's going to involve your listings, pendings, and contingents, so that you can get an idea of what's happening in the market, which analysis is what you're doing. So for now, though, I'll just include solds. But I had a 1,436 square foot property. So I started off with plus or minus 35%, 933 to 1939. Again, I am built in 2000. I believe this goes from 1998 or 99 to 2013, 14. So not a big, age is not a big factor. It's going to get measured out, so I left that alone. And we got 62 records. So that was my data. Of course, I exported this data. I mean, I went to the results tab. I'll walk you through it if you want, if somebody hasn't done it yet. I dropped it down to my PAIRS export format, and I just exported the data. Tab delimited with my column headers. Boom. Now, if you go back into the PAIRS platform, you can see the stats. I pulled this data yesterday when I did the file, so I had 63 records. We just had 62. So obviously, one's either been added or difference in a day. That's how data is, guys, so we're not going to get too worried about it. Okay, so first thing we want to do, you got to look at that market rate. That's just the first thing. So we've got a technical decline over here. And when I say technical, remember, just because there's a trend line that gets borne out doesn't mean you don't have to step back and kind of look at the big picture. Yes, there's a technical, but if you look at sales prices, now this is sales price per square foot. If you look at sales price, very minor, negligible, even stepping back, I mean, yeah, I'm calling that stable. I'm not saying that that's declining yet. Now, if that trend continues or accelerates, then I will. But certainly I also have sales prices, which is pretty bone straight. So cancel out of there. I'm not going to apply any market rate. So now the first thing we need to do before we start getting excited, is looking at this variable list. Now I can tell you, let's look at some things that we know, as a professional in your area. You may not know this, but I'll tell you. So guard gated. When this community was initially formed, they had guard gates. This during the wipeout of the real estate market, they've now since been converted over to just gated tracks. So they're all gated, but they don't have man gates anymore. So this is just the remnants of agents putting in guard gated. It's not guard gated anymore. It's just gated. So let's go ahead and drop that down to none. We know that's not going to be a factor. Now, also water view. Now I'll show you. Let me give you the aerial view here of our market area. Now there is a golf course in there, community golf course. They got sand traps. They don't have no water area. So I don't know if there's a fountain somewhere maybe at the clubhouse. But you can see that it says no solution because it's returning a negative. Now if we go into the stats tab, it says that one property has a water view. One property. And obviously when it cascades that property against other records, it's showing a negative. So definitely not. So we could do two things here. I think that's a bogus field that either an agent inputted incorrectly. So we could do two things. If we think that the record is accurate, with the exception of water view, we can just remove it from the panel by selecting none as a strategy. Now if we do that, we keep the record in there. We just take out this variable and say that this is not a variable of significance. So we can still use that record in the extraction of all the other variables. Which remember guys, I mean we only had 63 properties to deal with. So you want to be a little bit cautious when you're solving a bunch of variables. You want to be a little bit cautious kicking everything out. Now we've solved for a ton of variables on 13 records. So I don't want to tell you that you need a whole bunch, but those records were highly correlated. There was very good data. It was lined up. It was the right 13 records. Let's say that. You can struggle sometimes on 30. We've done 5 records and got great results. So it just depends on the data. But anyways, I don't want to take this. Now, if we remove it here in the panel, we're just saying it's not significant. Now, we could go to sub-market filter. We could locate water view, and we could select no. Now, if we do that, we completely remove any record that has that feature from analysis. Totally. So even the other livable area and all those items, it won't account for it'll just remove the record. So you know what? I think that's incorrect. I'm born and raised here, boots on the ground, still appraising actively. So I just think it's an error. So I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm just going to put none in the panel, which if you guys do none on water view and none on, what was the other one, Michael, I just on? Guard gate, and then click update. I want you guys to be where I am. When we automatically exited the submarket filter, it automatically updated it for us. Now again, we're not going to get scary. I know there's a couple of you people that are eyeballing that bathroom going, golly, you know, I want to give you some context. Let's go. I want to go submarket filter. I want to go sales price per square foot. Sales price per square foot for the properties in this data set go from 98 to 176, and you're somewhere about 125, somewhere in there for your median price per square foot. Let's go ahead and we'll, just for kicks and giggles, we'll say 125. Just to give you some context. Now, when you're done looking at that, make sure you put filter type none. If you leave that open and just hit cancel, it doesn't like that. It'll filter out all the records, right? So, let's look at that bathroom, because I know you guys are eyeballing it. So, first thing you got to do is you got to start diving in on the things that you don't understand. Now, bathrooms. That's high. That's high. You know, you're not going to get the old Ninja Master here to say that that's not high. But let's go down and look at the stats. Okay, look at that. So we got 53 records with 2 full bath, and we have 10 records with 1 3/4 bath. Now, I just had you at the beginning of this exercise calculate your 3/4 baths as a 3/4 bath. So the platform is going to compare 1 3/4 bath to 2 bath. Now, from a pragmatic situation, as appraisers, we round that 1 3/4 up to 2. We're not interested in solving for a 1/4 bath different, the shower stall to the tub and shower. So, of course, this outrageous number doesn't even apply. Now, if there was a 2.5 baths and 3 baths, well then, of course, we'd need this in here. But we can clearly see that every record in this data set is going to have basically 2 baths. So this doesn't apply. If it doesn't apply, you kick it. I want you to drop that down to none. Now, before we get into it, before we update, okay, so right now, golf course view, not killing me. This is high. I'm just telling you that this land value it doesn't pass the smell test to me. Excuse me, doesn't pass the absurdity test, as one of my colleagues, my esteemed colleague says. He'll probably get a kick out of that. Yeah, product from another mother. Nonetheless, go ahead and update it after we remove bathrooms, because we know bathrooms is not an issue, obviously. And before we start getting into it, let's at least get that out of our face and out of the analysis, because they are interrelated to a degree. We isolate variables and we solve. But remember, this is modeling, so everything is interrelated to a degree. So having that crazy bath number in there, if we'd have left it, is going to impact the rest of your variables. And sure enough, you see what happened. I just told you that I didn't like $5, $6, or $7 square foot for dirt, and it's already pushing it up now. But now remember, these are the standard default tolerances we have. Now these work great sometimes right out of the gate, but you can't be afraid to dive in. Now, new construction. Before we start diving into these, though, let's look at new construction. Let's look at the stats. It says we got 3 that are new construction, which is odd to me, because I thought they built this out and finished it. So I'll go to year built, and I'm going to look at the stats. Okay, so here we go. This is how you guys have to identify data anomalies from realtors. Now, you can clearly see that the newest property in this data set was built in 2013. There's 4 of them. It's highly suspect that there's 3 new constructions in here, unless they were sitting for a year. Now, I'm not saying that they might not be. That could be something where we'd actually want to dig back in the MLS. So, what do we want to do? Do we want to remove it here and say that, remember, a new construction field in our Glaber, just to give you some backstory too, is a field that we've coded out of next to the year built, and there's a field option to put new. I'll tell you what happens, though. It's not a fixed thing specifically for new constructions. And a lot of agents, not a lot, I don't want to say a lot, some agents, when they get a fully remodeled property, will go ahead and be sneaky and put new, because they gutted it. So, but that we know as appraisers, that don't make it new. That just means, yeah, right. It might be just as good as new on the surface, but it's not new. So we've got a couple things again. I can remove those 3 records. You know what? Let's go to submarket filter. Let's go ahead and let's say that. Let's go down to add a variable. Let's add new construction. You know what? Let's select no. Once you've selected no, I want you to save it. Now, of course, it's still in our variable panel, and it says no solution found now. But if you highlight it, you can tell why. If you click the stats tab again, it clearly says there's 0 records with new construction because we just filtered it out. So we know that's just That's just taking up dead air. Click none, remove it, get it out of your face. We're going to start getting down to the nuts and bolts here. Okay, so I don't like this. I mean, listen, I don't have any problem with 10 to 15,000 in that area for the golf course view. I just told you our price per square foot is $125 per square foot on a median basis. So typically, guys, thousands of records of data, you're going to get sometimes in the 40% range, but typically, if livable area is your primary driver, it's going to end up being somewhere between 50 and 70%. So, on that basis alone, usually if you get the livable area in the right lane, the other variables are going to start to cooperate. So the 50 to 70% range on this set of data should be somewhere in the 62.5 to 87.5 range. Like I said, not untypical to get into the 40s. So once in a while, I mean, it just doesn't work out that much, which would be somewhere in the 50s. And we've definitely got in the 50s now. But I don't like this lot size. I think that pool is a little bit high for this area. Now, this is you being the professional. So let's go ahead and let's tackle this lot size. Let's just look at the stats. Highlight lot and look at the stats. We got a pretty decent spread. I mean, we go from 4,300 square foot lots to 9,500. Got some chops in between. So you know what? Let's go ahead and change that lot size tolerance to 1,000. And you know what? Basically, I'm looking at it, guys. Look, the middle of the rotor is about 6,500 square foot of a lot. 1,000 square foot is about basically plus or minus 15%. So, yeah. Now we're not saying that doesn't matter. We're giving a tolerance for your data modeling. Every one of these square feet in this lot that you're providing as a tolerance gets addressed in the iterative method. So don't worry about that tolerance. All you're doing is opening up the carburetor to allow more properties to compare against each other in the initial pass to extract out the other adjustments for variables. So change that to 1,000 and click Update. Okay, guys, now you saw what just happened. I just changed that from 500 to 1,000, and look what happened to our lot. Now, I'm just going to show you again. I'll take it back to 500. And I told you that I didn't like that lot size adjustment at all. Not in that part of town. That's not happening. That's not credible. And remember, no matter what method you use, you have to validate the credibility. That's the one thing that separates you from that robo-computer that's running around out there doing CU. You're the professional. You have to validate credibility in numbers. There's nobody that knows how to validate that computer. Nobody standing over it saying with geographic competency, saying that that number's credible or anything like that. So don't be alarmed. This is the power that you have. So you can see when we change that to 1,000, it significantly brought down that lot size into actually a range that I think is acceptable. $3 to $4, somewhere in there. I'd probably be leaning in this part of the neck of the woods, probably about $3 a square foot, to be honest. Again, I've got 12,000 to 17,000 for a golf view. 15 grand, definitely somewhere that's a number I like to hear. Our livable area, 56. Now, 50% or 60%, excuse me. No, 50% is 62.5. So really close, and I mean definitely covered on the high side. So this would be around equivalency about what, 44% or something like that. So now let's go ahead and, I liked what that did. Let's just test our livable area just a little bit. Let's change it from 2 to 3. Now, bear in mind these results. Now, I don't want you guys spending a lot of time. We're playing right now because I want you to get comfortable stretched. I want you stretching out those statistical muscles so that you get to get ready for the combat that you have at your fingertips here that nobody can mess with as long as you get used to it and comfortable. So that's all we're doing. But to be honest with you, when you reach a point where your variables lined up, I don't want you doing the play. I mean, you can play and test if you want, but once you get everything into credible area, hey, Groovy Town, let's lock that in, go on to define adjustments, print that page out, and get on to the next one. Time equals money. But this is different. We're webinaring this so that you can get comfortable with things. So let's change that tolerance from 2% to 3% on livable area. And then let's click Update, and let's see if that makes a significant alteration of the outputs. Again, puffed up a little bit on our lot size, still close to that 3 to 4. Not going to kill me there. Golf view went up a little bit, still that 15 still in there. We can go anywhere between the goalposts. I mean, that's just the central point between these two. Pool. Remember that pool I told you that I thought that was excessive? We were around 28. We've chopped that down to anywhere between 16 to 20, 22 and a half. That with a central point of 19.5. Now we're getting happy. I don't care about REO and short sale. I'm not using them, but listen, we're accounting for variations in this data set. They exist. For example, REO. Let's go to stats. There's 5 property records that are REO. Short sale. There's another 5 that are short sale. Now, a lot of our users have asked me, either on go to meetings or whatever, or they've emailed us and said, listen, I wouldn't use a short sale or an REO. Why? I want to take those out of my model. Well, here's the trick, guys. If you take those out of your model, you're not accounting for obviously what looks like some pretty significant numbers in your data set. And what typically ends up happening is you're going to end up pushing those numbers are going to go somewhere. The platform is going to assume that value that you've extracted for these variables, if you remove those variables, it's going to scurry around and run into other variables, typically your primary variables. The argument that you've had with regression for 10 years, for every year since then, a lot of times regression doesn't give you the best number on the livable area. Why? Because it's typically your primary driver, and if you don't account for everything in your model as best you can, it has no idea where to attribute the majority of the value of the livable area. Plus, and here's a very important plus, I've seen CU. I have friends at Fannie Mae. I've seen CU outputs, and I'm telling you guys, they are on that comps, those recommended comps that they spit out, they are including distressed sales in there because of proximity or whatever. So if somebody comes back to you with a revision request on CU and says, well, why didn't you use this property? And it's a short sale, well, you can easily show them in the data, say, for goodness sakes, look, they're lagging the market, on point about $18,000. Why would I use it? That's not relevant. Doesn't pertain. So this is your ammo to avoid that dumb CU stuff that comes back at you with the distress sale. Now, if you want to use a distress sale, or let's say you don't want to, you have no choice. You have a limited market situation. Let's say you got 2, 3 arm's length transactions. You need to satisfy bracketing or whatever other requirement that as appraisers we always do. You need to use an REO or a short sale. What this also does is it also gives you a statistically supported ability to make an adjustment if you need. Now, there are times where the REO and the short sale, they might go in, put new carpet paint, or it might be just in good shape, and they put it on the MLS for 60 days. It was exposed adequately, and it didn't lag the market. So just because you use one doesn't mean you necessarily have to apply that adjustment, but you might have to, of course, put in a comment that the typical REO was lagging the market, however, the one you chose was in line. And, of course, that's going to show on the grid, the adjusted values. I mean, you're going to clearly see it. So leave those in your model. If you've got it in your data, account for it. If you've got a remodel field in your data, account for it. These are the components that start to break down these other primary variables. If you don't account for them, that's just typically where it's going to run. So I like these numbers, and again, like I said, guys, when you get to that point, lock it in. But you know what? I'm playing with you. Let's see if we make a significant difference by changing our year built tolerance to 5. And click Update. Now again, not much of a variance change. Now we changed, once we locked in lot size at 1,000 instead of 500, we changed that to 3%. We changed this now from 4 to 5. But look, I mean, we're getting a lot of consistency in our numbers. Now we've got our default filter at trim 2.5. I mean, you can always play around. You want to try standard deviations 3? Go ahead. I mean, you're in control. Your model. Now you may like these results better. Your histograms don't look as pretty, but hey, what did I tell you? Typically, out of thousands of data sets, 50% to 70% on the primary driver livable area of 125 is 62.5. So that's almost 50% on the money. Now, I like pretty histograms, and the numbers aren't that much different. So I'm going to go back to trim 2.5. And you know why, guys? Because I'm just silly. I like to have that sometimes. Just makes people go, ooh, almost like a shiny car. Ooh, that's nice. Look at that. So once you're happy, guys, you know, you've got enough stuff to do with your reporting. More appraisal. Time equals money. Well, click up here to the Define Adjustments blue hyperlink. Here's your precursor to your validation page. What do I mean when I mean precursor? You're going to lock in your adjustment because we're going to give you something, a validation page to communicate in your report to the end user, and we're not leaving this ambiguity in there. We're not giving them a range of low to high. We're not going to allow them to come back to you and say, well, if you would have adjusted a little bit on the higher side, you'd have made that price. Well, if you adjusted to the higher side, it might have whacked out your adjusted range of your comps. So we understand you're going to do what's the most prudent part with the application of these numbers. So all they need to see is the number that you validated as credible. And of course, I don't like using a calculator much, so I don't know about you guys, but I like to round. So I'm rounding out to 60. Why? Because it's supported between 48 and 68, and I'm the professional, and that's what I say. And I've got statistical support anywhere in those goalposts, guys. So do you. Lot size. I'm rounding that to 2. Why? Because I don't like to use a calculator. You know what? I'm rounding that to 18,000. I leave REO and short sale alone. Now, if you have to use one and it requires an adjustment, you can go anywhere between negative 7,326 all the way up to 10,000, negative 10,434. So if you wanted to, you could round that off to negative 10,000 if you had to, let's say, use one and apply an adjustment. Again, you could do the same thing for a short sale. You just got to put the negative on those because those are adverse issues. Year built, again, I round. I mean, now remember, guys, now some of you are looking at that saying, man, that is excessive for a year built. No, it's not. The same rule applies as an appraiser that you do in your normal practice now. Now, we give you a statistically supported number for livable area, for example. Now, if you grid out 3 properties within 50 square foot of each other on livable area or 50 square foot of the subject, you might say that's a negligible difference in my opinion. And you'd probably be right. I'd agree with you. Most every appraiser would agree with you, reviewer, everybody else included. So in that case, let's say it's 49 square feet. Well, technically that's almost $3,000, but you say it's negligible, so you don't apply that adjustment. Same thing with year built, guys. 4 or 5 years difference in this area, it's all the same stuff. I'm not making an age adjustment. Now, if I popped in one of those 2013 builts versus my 2000, well, you know what? 13 years of difference, almost a brand new house. Is that worth a $30,000 bump? Market's telling me it is. So I'm not going to use 13-year swings probably in my data either because I'm going to be cognizant of this data, and I'm going to say, well, you know, yeah, if I'm playing fast and loose trying to use the newer one, the market's telling me that the data is rendering an adjustment for it. So I should at least stay within what I think is negligible, maybe 4 or 5 years. And also, just remember, guys, that I said 4 or 5 years. Now we had 5 years here. Now that doesn't mean I might not say 6 years is negligible. This is not my rule. This does not say that I'm not going to adjust within 3% or doesn't adjust within 5 years. This says to the platform, these are my rules to model my data. This does not have to be what you practice on the application side of your adjustments. Don't confuse these. These are just your rules for your statistical model. That doesn't mean that that's what you think. Anything in between that means exactly what you don't think needs an adjustment. So again, just because you get a number doesn't mean you have to apply it. I didn't hit save, so I lost all my adjustments, so I'm going to hustle real quick. Rounded, rounded, rounded. We rounded that down in case you had to use one. And I'm rounding that age to 2,500 a year. You want to look really smart? Okay, I'll do 2,100 a year. I'm that good. Golf you, I'm rounding that. I got 16 here. Look, 15's in my goalpost. I like 15. Listen, real world practical application. You know as well as I do. On a pool, someone's not going to say, you know what, I'll buy that house over this one and I'll pay $17,732.72 more because it has a pool. It might be reasonable to say that they'll pay $18,000 more or $20,000 or $15,000, but yeah, that's silly. We're not getting into that kind of stuff. You don't do it in practice, neither do I. And you got statistical support anywhere in between here. So once you've selected your adjustments, I want you to click Save. That locks them in. And here's your money shot. Go to the Validate Adjustments page. Here's your validation report. Give it 2 seconds for your histograms to load in Google. This is what you want in your report. I've been saying it a lot. People love it. Get calls from people all the time. On the other end, reviewers, FHA, you name it. Here's the rules for your, first of all, here's your model. Here's the property records. We filtered out new construction, so we took out 3 out of the hopper, so you got 60 records. Some basic information of what those records entail. Your outlier filter for the end results. Any market rate that you applied, we applied none. The effective date and the date we did the analysis. It gives a validation green mark to our number that we assigned. The number of pairs that went into that number, 1,597 paired sales went into that $60 validated number. It gives your tolerance. This is your whole rule set too, guys. So this is the roadmap for someone to take your set of data if they had to, use this same method, and they can recreate these numbers time and time again. But no range low and high, just your number. Why? Because you're the professional. You're in control. This is your model, and you're the one that validates the output. Now again, when you get to this page with that Chrome web page screenshot, oh, it's easy. Drag and drop that box. Highlight your area. Highlight your analysis model comment at the bottom that we added for you. That basically tells the end user that this is a statistical model. Your rules, statistically supported in the market area, only validated if the value falls within that defined range. Copy that thing, and boom, paste it right in your report. And there's one further step, of course, view report. This is a work file retention report. This has all of the rules set again, but this has the range, low and the high. It has all of the statistical data points, such as mean, median, tri-mean, interquartile mean, standard deviation. This shows everything. This is something that you want to have in case you need to, God forbid, you get any kind of litigation situation or the state comes calling. This is the one that gives all the short and curlies. This is all the data. So that's it. We ran through this one, guys. Now, we slow walked it because, we're going to do another one, slow walk it too, because I want you guys to don't be afraid to touch. Don't be afraid to touch. Don't look at what jumps off the page. Realize it's a process. But you guys saw that after we pruned out a couple of variables we didn't need to deal with, new construction and guard gate, slightly changed one tolerance, everything started to light up like a Christmas tree. That's how easy it is. So you want to put blinders on when you open up that test. So let's go ahead and click on the GandySoft icon. So let's take a second now. I want to go back to what I want to open up a data set just in case your area deals with this. And this was something I was talking about earlier, and I told you we'd get through one before we started. But it's important. So basically, you know what? Let me show you from scratch. I'm going to open up. Actually, I'm going to right-click on one of our data files, and I'm going to open it with Notepad. This is how easy this is. Control A after I do that, copy. That selects all the records. And then I'm going to paste it. If you need to clean your data, create a new variable. Once it's highlighted, you can auto-format so you can see it all and it's not overlapping. But for example, if you're in a part of the country, which we're running into a lot of these MLSs, we don't know if it's non-disclosure states or whatever, or just a lack of standardization. For example, like livable area. This is the livable area for our data set. I mean, you might see this in some of these data sets that we're seeing, where they're not required to put in livable area. Now, I'll tell you what, guys, if livable area is a variable in your list, it's not going to analyze anything that has a blank in it. And, of course, you're going to have livable area in your variable panel because it's typically the primary. So if you needed to, you could come into here, either go through MLS and maybe in the agent remarks or augment with public record. You could go ahead and fill in the blanks, allowing the platform to have more data to run. Same thing if there's a mistake in your data. If it says this one has a pool, and maybe your pool, it says in-ground pool, but you've looked at the picture and it's above ground. You could take that out. I mean, the cleaning data. Same thing at the very end. Let's say, for example, you know what? I need to create a variable. My subject property backs to a major street. So I'm going to put in here street view right next to the last column. So we made a header for it. Now we're just going to go through every record, and you're going to mark the ones that have a street view with a Y for yes, and the ones that don't have a street view, an N for no. And you're going to go through all the records and do that. I mean, this is data cleaning. If you have to do it for a special situation, well then it's worth it. Now, when you fill out all those, you want to save that file as a, excuse me, the type is what I'm more concerned about telling you. There's a text, tab delimited, *.txt. That's the format you save your data. I'll save this as street view variable. And you can go ahead and exit out of your data. It asks you a bunch of times. Now, I want you guys just to watch me for 2 seconds. I'll do tester. I'm going to load up that data set, and I'm going to show you what we did. Now, when you create a new variable, occasionally we have intuitive logic that sniffs out variables, but sometimes it doesn't. So you want to go through. Actually, we were right here. The data popped up and came here. See this tab called Fields? Let's go through there. We're looking for that street view. That's the one that I added in. I'm concerned about it. So street view. There it is. It's coded as a yes, no, which is correct. Now over here it says yes. Yes for beneficial. Now I'm doing that because it's not beneficial. So I'm going to want to change that to no. And the variable's blank, and which is fine. You don't have to assign that. That's okay. You got the column header here, and we just changed it from a beneficial to an adverse. Why? Because we think street view is adverse. So now you're going to do the same thing. After you've done that little step, you're just going to go to Analyze Pairs. And in the Add a Variable column, you now have available to you street view. Did I miss it? Okay. There it is. Sorry, it's out of order. I don't know why. Street view. So now you can update the panel, and if we would have filled in that, that will tell you if there is any, and obviously it's saying no solution because it's giving a positive result. And we've said it should be an adverse situation. So in that situation, if that were the result, you'd have to say to yourself that a street view is not a negative, and it doesn't matter, so we take it out of your model. And we did put garbage data in there, Michael said, just to remind me of why it's coming out bad. So let's go back to that GandySoft, guys. You guys should have been here, but let's go create a new analysis. Let's go ahead and get into we want to stretch out those statistical muscles. So on this one, I want you guys to put in Aliante test 2. So Aliante, spelled funny for you people not here in Vegas. It's a single-family property, and again, Friday, February 27th. You see a pattern here. I don't like driving around every day. I like to do inspections 1.5 days out of the week if I can, so I can be cozy with the coffee at the office working, typing. So go ahead and click Save on that, and let's go to the Data Change button. Well, actually, back up. I'm sorry. No, Save. Go to Data Change. You need to have that source. Again, Greater Las Vegas Association of Realtors. If you don't have it that way, it's not going to work. Greater Las Vegas Association of Realtors. I want you to upload that test 2 data file, and then I'll give you the setup after we get into the pairs panel. And don't worry, I think this data set might have had a few more property records, so it's going to spin a little bit with the hamsters running around with calculators, tabling all this data. And it does look like we have at least over 100 records. But go ahead and click on that upper right hand hyperlink, the blue one that says Analyze Pairs. Let's just go ahead and get that panel out of the way. And then we'll start jumping into context. Again, I want you guys to always have context to understand what I'm doing, because that also helps you with the data collection practice. Don't be making skinny little radius tools and stuff like that. I mean, define your market area, competitive market area. You know, that's what realtors do, guys. I mean, you tell them you want to live in a certain area of town. Trust me, they're not showing you everything just in that subdivision. They're showing you all kinds of stuff that's on the outskirts of that area too. But it was a single-family home, and I'll go ahead and I'll put in the MLS number so I can show you where we are. 150-8981. Okay. So of course we named it Aliante. I just want to show you. So Aliante was one of North Las Vegas master plans that really got crushed in the boom period or the bust period, because that's when construction had pretty much kicked off. So you can imagine that turned into the dark side of the moon for quite a while, because they were sold initially in the run-up, and boy, when they came down, they came down. But it's a smaller master plan. I'm going to map it out for you. Now, I'm not going to include a certain portion, and I'll address that after, but I'm just going to define the Aliante master plan, which, you know, there's gated tracts in there, there's non-gated, there's some townhouses. I mean, there's decent mixture of property types, but it's a small master plan nonetheless, and it's pretty unique to itself. I mean, some of these outside developments might be similar to most people, but when you're dealing with LIDs and stuff like that, SIDs, master plan improvements, I try to keep my master plans confined to my master plans. So that's about right there the Aliante master plan that does not include this area right in here. Now this area right in here is the Aliante master plan too, the executive guard gated home sites. This whole part is part of the Aliante master plan as well, but the age restricted Sun City part. Again, I'm not in the guard gated executive homes, and I'm not age restricted. So I don't really want, I know I'm going to have a good, this is a healthy, robust market. I'm going to have good data. I can handle these. We can manage them. But sometimes if you know you're going to have a healthy amount of data, why deal with it? We could manage this data with the guard gated parts or the age restricted. We could measure it out. And if you were in a situation where you had limited sale data, you may want to incorporate those areas and just add in the age restricted variable or add in the guard gate variable and solve for those differences. But right now I know we're going to have a lot of data, so don't worry about that for now. But that's what I defined for my comp search. No need to complicate it right now for you guys. Now I'm just going to skin it down to sales right now just so you guys have some context. But I'm a 2,790 square foot house, so I start off pretty much the same way every time if I've got good data, or at least what I know is probably going to be a healthy environment, robust set. I usually start off about that plus or minus 35%. So I'm 2,790 square foot, so I'm going to go about 1,813 to 3,767 square feet. Now again, I think this market kicked off in 2003, 2004, believe it or not. There's a couple of houses that were built last year now because empty lots sat there for 4 or 5 years, and just now in the last year or two, builders have came back in. They've been in a climate where they can actually build a house and sell it and make a profit. So they've been building again. But my point is, the maximum spread in ages is probably 10 or 11 years. Very homogeneous, tons of different builders, don't get me wrong. But nonetheless, that age is going to get measured out, so I'm not going to put in an age filter. And you can see that that's 224 records. Excuse me, I did not define two-story. Now, we could leave that alone too. We have one story as a variable. But again, I know I'm going to have a healthy amount of data with just two-story. 145 records. I mean, 145 records within a plus or minus 35% situation on livable. I don't need to mess with one story, just like I don't need to mess with age restricted or that executive area. So again, I had 145 records, and that was my data pool, and I just exported it in the PAIRS format. So again, if you go to stats, you can see our record data set has 146. So I pulled this data yesterday to send it to you, so a record's probably fallen off. You know, might have been sold exactly more than a year ago. So again, guys, the first thing we don't look at is what jumps off the page, even if it doesn't scare you that bad. But I mean, there's some things in here that I don't like. I mean, we're looking at, you know, again, this is a, hold on, let's get some context. Let's go to that sales price per square foot. This is something that you guys, I want to see the spread, first of all. We go from 68 bucks to 115. That's not too bad. I mean, you can't even fit two of the lowest one into that. So that's good. That means I've got some, I don't have too much probably noisy junk in here. But on a median basis, we're probably about 92 bucks a square foot, median price per square foot in this data set. I'm telling you, tie a string around your finger. Typically, you're going to get somewhere 50 to 70% of that median price per square foot typically is attributed to livable area. So using my calculator right now, that means that you're probably on the hunt or going to expect at some point in this process, when you get your variables to where they should be, a $46 to $64 a square foot for your livable area. So now again, on filter type, put none, so that we were just looking at data. We don't want to add a filter and take everything out. So let's go back to the panel now and start looking where we're starting off. So again, we were at 46 to 64. That, that's right there at the upper end, but we don't. Guest house, okay, I don't have that. Now this could be a casita, detached, unit with a kitchenette or something. Gated seems a little bit high. Garage base seems high. Bath seems a little bit high to me. I mean, in the desert out here in this market area, $92 a square foot on a median price per square foot. So we've got some stuff to do. So the first thing let's deal with is guest house. Let's go to the stats tab after you highlight it. Okay, we got one record. Got one record in there. I don't have a casita. I'm not using anything with a casita. I got one property in that data set with a casita. You know what? Let's go to submarket, guys, and let's select guest house. And we're going to get rid of that. We're going to select no. Now that is going to remove every record in that data set, which we know is one, that has a guest house. Now we left the variable in the panel. It says no solution. Again, if you look at the stats, you can see the filter it kicked it out. We told it to take it out, so it's out. So we're going to go ahead and drop that down to none so that we can get it out of our face when we update. But we're not done yet. We're gonna look around here. Now, new construction. Let's check the stats tab on it. So we got two properties that are new construction. Doesn't look very significant. So we got a couple options. Do we want to keep it in our data set and just remove the variable? Or do we want to actually totally remove it from analysis by going into the submarket filter? And I'm kind of pondering that right now myself. So you know what? Let's go ahead and go into submarket filter and let's find new construction. I'm built in 2000, guys. So, excuse me, 2007. Yeah, new construction, new beast. You know what? I'll put no for now. And let's click save. I can always come back and play with it if I want. But one thing we're starting to get rid of variables that we don't like. New construction, drop that down to none. So before you start messing with tolerance, so you want to make sure that everything that you have is accounted for, everything that you need to know. Now, I'll let you know that the property that I'm dealing with right now has a greenbelt view. Now, Glaver, my MLS, Greater Las Vegas Association of Realtors, has actually a field that we can compute a greenbelt view. So I do want to add a variable before I start messing around with these tolerances. Now, sometimes, this could be a secondary or a tertiary. It's definitely probably not going to be a very high number like 50 grand or nothing. But nonetheless, I want to test for it. So I'm going to just go ahead and add it in. And now remember though, I know going in that I'm adding in a wild card here. This thing might act goofy. It might pick up a bunch of noise. So if I start getting really goofball numbers after I'm playing with my tolerances in these other variables, primary ones, I'm going to probably come back and remove it. But for now, I do want to try to solve for it. So let's go ahead and click Update after we've added Greenbelt View. and we got rid of new construction because, of course, we filtered it out. And now we're going to start digging in. Okay, so bathroom count. Let's look at that stats. We do have a decent spread of bathrooms. We go from 2 bath to 4 1/4. So I don't like that. I mean, that's giving away baths. I mean, certainly that's not something that's happy. I still think that's high. I'm not liking that. To be honest, Greenbelt view, I mean, I think that's probably a little light. I'm not too upset over here. That primary variable is usually going to find the sunshine one way or another, and we said 46 to 64, and that's bone right in the center. So that's actually 60% on the money, and I said 50 to 70%. So we're good there. This is not bothering me too bad. Pool, we're in the desert, guys, so we get a decent amount for a pool. But we have no bath adjustments. So before I kick out Greenbelt view, I'm at least going to play with some of these, because if I took Greenbelt view out, it might give me a bath, but I can always go back. These are my standard defaults. So the first thing I'm going to tackle again is let's look at lot size. We got a 500 square foot tolerance. And again, we've got 3,900 square foot all the way up to a 1/4 acre. So we've got a pretty decent spread here. Again, with that center property, about 6,500. So, you know, plus or minus 1,000 square feet, I'm probably, now, just because I'm not going to adjust anyways, I'm saying, though, that pragmatically, that there's comparable natures in properties that are within that square footage. And Michael just asked me if we looked at market rate, and you know what? I didn't do it with you. So let's go up there to market rate change. But I want you to look at it, and I knew this because I peeked at the data. So look, I've got less than 1% of an annual rate. So we're not applying a rate. You're not getting me to say that's increasing. I mean, I'm leaving that stable. I'm calling that's a day. Leave that alone. So I want you to change your lot size to 1,000 square foot tolerance. Let's just start there. Let's always tackle one tolerance at a time and see what impact it makes, because if you may get negative impacts and you may want to start backing away from that one and tackle a different tolerance. But let's just make that little change. Okay. Now look guys, I got 3 to 4,500 for a bath. Now, I don't like this, so I'm still not happy. When I say I don't like it, I mean you can only accept all these adjustments for your model if they all make sense. You can't leave in one goofball one. You can't leave in one that says no solution, because if you do that, you're impacting, even though we isolate variables and we solve, they are interrelated to a degree. So if you leave in this goofball number that you don't think is credible, and I don't, it's impacting all the other variables to some degree. So you're statistically cheating if you leave it in there, even though you might say, well, all those other ones are awesome. And I'd agree with you. But we got a problem child here in Garage Bay we're going to deal with. Now let's look at the livable area stats. So I want to see the spread. We've got a pretty tight spread of, I mean, if you look at some of these properties are really close. We're talking, you know, for example, 3149 to 3173. I mean, that's literally within 1%. And there's multiples of them. Yeah, look, I mean, the count, there's 3 right here that are going to be within 1% of these 3. So you know what? We don't always have to open up the carburetor. Sometimes taking your foot off the gas works just as good. I want you guys to change that tolerance of livable area from 2% to 1%. And click Update. And let's just see what happens. The hamsters run around with calculators like crazy. Okay. Wow. Now that's how easy sometimes it is, guys. Honestly, that literally, I changed lot size. I think I actually played with 3 here, Didn't make much of a change, and then I backed it up to 1. But that's the 3 things I did after I pruned out stuff and added in Greenbelt View. But now what did I get? I got my $6,000 bath, which, you know, I'm doing a backflip on that. I've got a garage going from $7,000 to $9,400, so I've got $8,000, $7,500. Very credible. I've got a gated feature for the ones gated. Mine's not. $4,000 to $5,500 for a gate location. I mean, I'm $5,000. Greenbelt View. You know, hey, $10,000, almost on the money. I mean, you know what? I don't know about you guys, but for the extra, you know, privacy factor and having a nice greenbelt to look at, you know, I'm on board. $10,000. I mean, that locational, livable area. Look at that primary. Remember, 50 to 70% typically is where you're going to get. Sometimes in the 40s. 50% was $46. So we popped right up into the 49. Round that to 50, and I'm darn near. I'm just right there. I'm in the game. My lot size, I'm $3 to $4. I like 3 or 4. Whatever works. It's a 2-part process, guys. I'm going to talk about that on the next precursor page. But pool. Okay, 13 to 15. I go 15 on that. Year built. Anywhere between 1267 and 18. I mean, 1500 is kind of, if I'm going to round, is where I like. I mean, I could remember we still have the ability. Hey, let's change our filter to standard deviations 3. If you might like the results better. You may not like them. Now look, standard deviations wax out that garage again. And this is the beauty of pairs, guys. Statistical filter that you're applying, trim 2.5. You're trimming 2.5% of the recorded adjustments from the lower side and the upper side. It's been used in statistics forever. Standard deviations is another filter you have at your disposal. It doesn't matter which one. Whichever one you choose, as long as someone has your roadmap of your rule set with your model, and you validate the credibility of them, boom, it's over. Game, set, match. Nobody, no robo-computer can tell you what's better. I assure you, it's not going to hold up the smell test. Your human brain is capable of more power than you've daisy-chaining a bunch of those supercomputers together. So don't be afraid. You just got to learn how to use the tools and load up on it. So I'm not messing around though, guys. When you guys get to this point, listen, I'm credible all the way down the line. Lock it in. Hey, let's go to that precursor page. And I want to tell you about this precursor page. Now listen, pragmatically, a lot of times, I don't fill this out until I'm nearing the end. And by the way, guys, we just solved, let me go back 2 steps, because Michael just pointed something out that is important for you to understand. Remember, we filtered down this data set to 143 records. Now, we solve for 10 variables, all credible. All credible. And we could have even changed some tolerances if you didn't agree with something else, and we probably could have got something in line. But what I wanted to tell you is on this precursor page, guys, a lot of times I don't do this till the very end of, before I'm getting ready to finish my report. And the reason is it's a 2-part process. Finding evidence and support for your adjustment, and then the application of those adjustments. Now, let's say I put on my 4 comps, 5 comps, for goodness sakes, plus my listing or 2 listings. I don't know how many comps we have nowadays, 6 or 7 minimum it seems like. But let's say I apply $50 a square foot, and it brings my larger comp down below my lower comp that goes up. Well, then I might back that down to $43 a square foot. I'm statistically supported anywhere between 43 and 56.50. So sometimes I fill this out at the end. Why? Because I want to make the tightest adjusted range of values of my comps. And as long as I can do that by applying any number in between here, well, then I'm picking and choosing which number in between here I use. And why am I doing that? Because I'm the professional, and I'm in control. I'm in charge. But again, on that precursor page, just you lock in those numbers, guys. Pick your number, whatever number makes sense to you. No matter what method you use, you're supposed to validate the credibility of it. You get some, wacky number that pops out of a regression panel, I got news for you. You can't use that just because you think it's regression. You still have to validate if it's credible. And be able to explain why, which, I hope you got a good background in statistics if you're trying to intricately explain an R square and all that good stuff and confidence levels. Remember, we don't have confidence levels, guys. We don't have to worry about residuals. We don't worry about the base. Why? Because every property has a base. We isolate variables and we solve. And if you get a credible number, well, by goodness, then that's the number that's credibly supported statistically. This is not arbitrary. This is not an equation. The reason regression runs with confidence factors and things like that is because it's an equation, nothing more. This is not an equation. This is actually paired sales analysis and the iterative method, which is just a fancy term for the word algebra. Well, it's a little different, but it's close. You understand it if you look it up. So just click Save after you've locked it in, and boom, we're back to that, the money page. Takes a second to load up our histograms. But, man, listen, I've been putting this in my report, guys, for 8 months. I don't even get, and listen, there's been times, I'm an honest appraiser, just like I'm sure all of you are. Just because you sell a house to somebody doesn't mean it's worth it from a market perspective. And I got news for you. I don't get any blowback calls for a reconsideration of value. Not with this kind of data. These people are looking at this kind of data. They don't know if I'm a rocket scientist or an appraiser. They certainly can't duplicate it. Nobody wants to come in and go, yeah, that's too high. Oh, my goodness, but look at this histogram. He's got, for goodness sakes, they don't like my livable area adjustment. There's 9,405 paired sales that went into that number. I think I've got adequate support. Nobody's knuckling up wanting to get into combat with me. Or you. Now, sure, Greenbelt view, it was a little bit thin of the number of pairs, but there's 7 paired sales that went into that $10,000, and it's credible. Accept it. Move on. Go about it. All your rule sets are there again. They can recreate the wheel if they want. Everything that you used. As long as they use this method, those numbers are going to be supported and recreated time and time again. So I want to get hustling because I can see that I'm eating up time. I'm obviously running my mouth. And this next one is interesting. So let's go back up there, guys, to that GandySoft, just the GandySoft icon. What do we call that, a logo, Michael? It's an icon. We're icon. No, it's a logo. Let's go create a new pairs analysis. Let's get into this because I don't want to cut. And you know what? We've had a few questions. Michael's been keying some answers back and forth to you people. But if you got any more or if I'm going too fast, please don't hesitate in that message box. Just message Michael or, yeah, in the questions box. I apologize. Why do I keep saying message? I apologize, guys. I'm on one side of the computer, and the smart one, Michael, is over on the other. So let's go ahead and let's create a new analysis. By the way, guys, I was at that main page, and the far blue box on the left or the right-hand corner is create a new analysis. I just click Go. Let's go ahead and name this Silverado Ranch Test 3. Single-family home, and you know when I inspected it yesterday, 27th. I was on Whirlwind, and you know what? You guys are helping me complete my comprehensive statistical analysis, so I don't have to do them twice. I do real-world stuff. I'm boots on the ground just like you guys. This is the power that you have at your fingertips, and I'm not joking when I say it. I mean, like I said, we've been developing this, working on it for over a year. Technologically, I came up with the idea about 5 years ago, and I've been banging on it for about 8 months. Now, when I tell you the power, I'm not understating that, honestly. There's a program out there that you can accomplish some of the things that we do. Not the same method. That's why we filed for a patent. But similar statistical modeling, and it's called SPSS. It's made by, well, IBM owns the company now. I don't know who it's made by originally, but it's an IBM product. It's $1,800 for the program. Of course, they charge you for updating, which you have to do constantly. And it'll take you about 4 hours worth of long-handing just to get it set up to start to run. We do all that here in the now. This is not a situation where you get a bad number like in regression, you're stuck with it. Oh, baloney. You're not stuck with it. You can change tolerances. You can go into submarket filtering and carve out nasty pieces of data that are creating problems in your data. You can easily spot and test for collinearity. You can scenario model. I'm going to show you that one on this one right here because I want to show you what I mean. You can't do that in regression. You can actually build in a static number into the rest of your model so it's statistically balanced the proper way, the way you're supposed to do it. Now, some of you might say, well, why would you ever put in a number that you couldn't solve for? Because maybe you're getting non-credible results, but it's a variable that you have at your disposal in easy ways to extract from different sources, such as fireplaces. One of the easiest variables in the world for you to grab your Marshall and Swift or your Craftsman cost approach, get the number, apply your multipliers, depreciate it, and plug in a depreciated cost. Build it into your model. Anytime it encounters that fireplace in the model, it'll account for it at the number you specify, and it'll impact all the other variables at that amount. That's how you build a statistical model that's done correctly, not one that allows you to cheat. And you don't have to cheat. You don't have to cheat. With all the power at your fingertips right here with this platform, you don't have to cheat. You just have to know how to use it. So let's go to that data change. Now, I'm just warning you guys. Source, Greater Las Vegas Association of Realtors. You got to make that happen. I'm just warning you, though. I want you to upload test 3 data. Now, this is a big set of data. So it's going to take a second for the hamsters to run around and table and index your data. It's going to take us even longer when we're doing the analysis, but I want to show you that a lot of people think that when you get large sets of data, you can test for every variable and get awesome results, and it just doesn't matter that way. Sometimes you can test for those tertiary variables or secondary variables on the smaller sets of data and get better results than you do on the bigger. It just depends on the data. So I don't want to give you I know there's platforms out there that tell you, oh, you need 500 records in order to get, start solving for specific things. I assure you, even in those programs, you can get 500 property records and still get an $18,000 covered patio adjustment if you tried to solve for it. It just matters the layout of the data. So here's all our data. Let's go ahead and click Analyze Pairs and go ahead and watch that spin and dial for a second, because we got a healthy set of data, and then I'll go ahead and give you the setup. And we're right on time, guys. We've got about 30 minutes left. I'll have a very small segue at the end to get off with you, but I want to show you this one to show you the power of what you can do that you can't do in any other program. Unless you could pull off half of it in SPSS, different method. But you can't do it in any other program. You are not stuck with a bad adjustment ever. Ever. Statistical modeling at its finest right here. So let me give you the backstory. Got to give you some context. Let's go ahead and pull my subject property. So there we are. I'll back up a little bit. So we're in a subdivision called Maryland Pebble, which flows in, I don't want to say master planned area, because it's not master planned, but it was a planned community of Silverado Ranch. Now, up here is Windmill Springs and Crystal Springs, but all these areas flow. So the first thing of course, the most important part is define that market area. Now, I know a lot of you guys don't want to go further than a mile out. This does not have to match your 1004 MC, but I assure you that if you're doing your 1004 MC on too small of swaths of data, you're also suspect to getting results that are not that credible, because they can be skewed when you don't have the law numbers. But I want to show you basically Silverado Ranch, Maryland Pebble, and Crystal Springs area. Now that's the area, but I want to show you, you know, just to give you some context, guys, look, that's 4.5 square miles long of an area that I just mapped out. I'm not worried about it. You shouldn't be worried about it either, because anybody that knows this town, knows this area, knows that that is that market area, or it's certainly competitive. If you ask a realtor, I want to live in this neighborhood, trust me, they're going to be hustling you all out here and over in here. They know what this area is. They might even cross the freeway and go over here, but I disagree with that. And why? Because I'm the professional, and I'm in charge, just like you're in charge of defining your area. And that dang computer that's doing a 3-mile radius, when you're laughing, saying that's so hilarious, it's roping in this, you know, houses built in 1970 with the ones across the freeway in the guard gated tract. I mean, how silly is that? Not going to be hard for you guys to ever have to poke holes in that. Yeah, a radius tool might have actually got stuff over here on the other side of I-15. That nowhere similar. But I want to get back to my data set with you. So just to give you the setup, I'm a single-family home again. I'm a 2-story property, 1,557 square feet. Now, actually, I'm not going to be able to complete this one with you guys. Why? Because I was a pretty tricked-out house, and it's updated. So I'm going to have to, we don't have an updated remodel field, so I'm actually going to go through every one of these records and clean it, because it does look like the price is also high, and if I'm going to argue with something, I want data. But I was 1,557 square feet, healthy market. Healthy market. So I started off with plus or minus 35%. I was 1,557. Now, there's a lot of data here. Now, I haven't put in an age yet, 465, and I was built in 1997? Yeah, 1997. So I'm going to put in 1987 to 2007. Okay, 434. So at this point, guys, I know I don't need 434. I mean, I don't know what I'm trying to do at 434. I mean, other than it's just going to take longer to analyze. And you know what? If I can get closer to my 1004 MC rules and sets, I mean, I'm going to try. So you know what? I'm going to back that up to plus or minus 25%, which would be my 1004 MC. Now, you guys can do yours the way you want to do it. You're a professional. You're in control of your stuff. I do mine. Old Fannie Mae, by the way, just in case if any of you guys are old dogs like me, about 20, 25 years ago, Fannie Mae's old legacy guideline on livable area, I think, was 30%, plus or minus. So on my 1004 MC, I'm plus or minus 25%. But look at this. So, you know, Sam Heck, I got 390 records. I've skinned it down to my 1004 MC, so I'm keeping it. I'm not going to go any lower. Now, if you go into the stats, you can see we had 391 records. Again, we're 1 record off. So again, first thing we got to do. Now, this is interesting because we got a technical increase of 6.607% for the year, but step back. Actually, let's analyze the last quarter. Yeah, the quarter cooked up. What about the half? Oh, look at that. Dead flat. And then for the year period, we've got an increase. But again, most of the candles from here, we know half year was flat. It's gone up a little here. You know what, guys? I'm leaving it alone. I'm not applying a market rate. I'm in charge, and I'm going to call that market stable regardless. Now, you can do whatever you want to do on your stuff, no doubt about it. That's totally, you're in control. If I wanted to apply a rate, I could have simply applied a rate by that. I could have put in my own rate because I don't want to use the calculator. I could have put 6%. I could have said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 months, I could say, I think it's pretty stable. So I don't want you to adjust any property within 330 days of contract date. Basically 30 days times 11. Now, if you apply a market rate, guys, we figure out the daily rate, and then we apply from the contract dates of all the properties in your data set to the effective date. We apply that rate. Now, if you specify a number of unadjusted days, well, you can guess what happens. Anything that was contracted within, in this situation, 330 days, would not get adjusted for market conditions. That's how we smooth out on a straight line basis for now, if you need to adjust your data set. But I'm going to leave it alone, guys. I'm calling that stable. Once we get the panel back up, which takes a second for this large set of data, we're gonna slice and dice pretty soon. So the first thing is we don't care what jumps off the page, and the first thing we have to do is start tackling things that don't matter. So again, we got basement 0, 0, 0, no solution. We got one record in there. Looks like on a median basis it sells for less than the ones that don't have the basement. There's one record. You know what? I'm not even submarking filtering. I'm just taking out the panel. It doesn't matter to me. None. Now again, fixer. Let's check the stats on that. Got one record again. I'm not dealing with any fixtures. For goodness sakes, I'm a remodel, so I'm going to have to come in here and actually have to make a new field. So one record. Not that far off. Look at that median and that $1,000. I mean, not a big spread, so I don't think it's going to be that noisy. I'm just going to take it out of my panel. So I'm going to chop out basement, and I'm going to chop out fixer. I got these other things I'm going to leave alone for now. Let's go ahead and click update and see what happens when we take all that stuff out of the mix. Now, like I said, guys, it's a process, but this process doesn't take long. Now, when we get down with these things, we're going to start moving and shaking because we're down to variables that matter. Now, of course, unlike myself, I'm going to actually have to crawl through every one of these records, which is going to be a pain. It's probably going to take me 30, 45 minutes, and I'm going to have to mark every one that's updated, every one that's not, and actually account for that in my model, because I am updated, and if there's an adjustment to be made on a good house versus my updated, then I need to have some support. Now, another reason that regression seems fast, guys, is this equation. It's an equation. This is actually literally millions of calculations going on. So there's a little bit more of a resource hog on our method, but it's worth it in the long run, trust me. Okay, so again, now we start looking. We've got rid of all the junk. We've checked market rate. We're good there. So now we start looking. So that first thing I do, I always look at it. I like context, and I'm telling you, after running thousands of sets of data, it's almost like habit to me now. The median price per square foot in this data set is about $114. Now I go from 63 to 150. Okay, there's a pretty good spread there, but I only got 163, and I only got one in the 150, so 70-ish to 140. I could make a filter, guys, but I'm fine. You know what? I really wanted to come in here. I got so much data, guys. We are fine. We don't need to filter. But I did want to get some context on our price per square foot, because remember that rule of thumb, 50 to 70%. So I'm just telling you, typically, it's going to be somewhere between $57 and almost 79, 80 bucks, somewhere in there. I'm going to click cancel. Oh, I click cancel so it doesn't refresh. Michael just gave me a trick. But look, guys, this seems a little bit high. I mean, listen, it wouldn't kill me if everything else was in line, but look, that garage bay, I mean, this thing is a squirrely variable. Sometimes it cooperates perfectly right off the jump. Other times you got to massage that one. But again, this right here is on the this is outside of my range of even 70%. So I don't like that. This area is not a high cotton area, so lot size, not liking it. Pool seems excessive. I mean, that seems excessive. We're in the desert, but it seems excessive. Repo REO, I'm not going to do nothing with those, but year built, you know, manageable, not in a bad lane. But obviously, I've got a ton of variables I don't like, guys. So the first thing I want you to do, again, you know what? 3 times the charm, 3 times in a row. Let's look at the lot size. Let's just look at them in the stats, and it's going to take a second to load up the data. Yeah, you know why it's taking so long, guys? I just want you to look over here. There's 65,800 pairs right now that are in this number for that variable only. I mean, that just goes to show you how many variables, and they're going to have, yeah, there's a ton of stuff going on. But again, we've got 1,300 square foot lot all the way up to a quarter acre. So we've got a pretty decent spread. So let's do what I did before. 2 times in a row, this will be the third. Let's change that lot tolerance to 1,000 and click update. Now it's going to take a second, of course. But that's because of an astronomical number of paired sales that are going on. So trust me, there's nobody out there that everybody knows this method's proven, time tested. We've just modernized it for you. So with that kind of statistical data you've got at your fingertips to display, yeah, you're in a good spot. Okay. So what did that do to us? Now, remember, I keep telling you guys this too. I don't want you. You can test and play. You can test and play all day. But at the end of the day, time equals money. Once you get things into the driver's lane of credible, lock it and go. I mean, if you need to test or you want to test for maybe a specific variable that you have, or a homeowner makes a comment to you that, you know, I spent $12,000 on this covered patio, or, you know, if you need to test to see, then if you can get credible, fine. But I'm sensitive to your time. So $2,500 to $3,500 for a bath. I mean, you know, a little bit lighter, but not bad. I mean, certainly not something that's unreasonable. Let's say that. It's still credible. Garage bay, 9,000 to 12,000, 10,000 in the center. I mean, not bad. Gated, you know, 8,500 to 9,000 for a gated community versus a standard. I'm not gated. Not killing me. 52 to 65. I mean, with 58. You know, now our 114, you know, was the median, so 58 divided by 114, guys, is 50.87%. Right in that driver's lane where I told you, you know, typically they work out. That lot size, we brought that way down. Remember, I told you that $7 is not happening, and sure enough, it's not. We just needed to allow more pairing on the first pass to prove it out. So, I mean, I'm pretty good. Now, you know, we could test. Let's test one time. Let's test 3% livable area. And then I'm going to do more of the scenario modeling, which I really want to show you before we get off. Just to show you what you can do in this platform that's absolutely wild, statistically awesome. You can build it into a model. Everything's accounted for. You're not making an adjustment on the side. It's included in your model. And that's the beauty of it. That's how you know that you're playing apples to apples. You're doing something right. So we just played with that 3% tolerance on livable area, or 2% to make it 3%, just to see if it made anything more credible. Okay, well, it didn't change bathroom much. Garage bay, it knocked off $35, but it made it $10,000 on the money, which is, I'll take that. I just won the lottery. That's like the Price is Right. the dollar guy. I mean, you just hit the exact number. You won the car. Gated. Yeah, peaked it up between, now I don't have to do that 85 to 95. I mean, I got a $10,000 adjustment if I want. That's totally credible. Livable area. Man, $114 was that median. $57 is exactly 50% of that 114 median. So, I mean, it's right in that lane where I told you guys it just typically happens. Lot size, $2 to $3. I'm good with $3 a square foot. Pool? Okay. Remember, we started out, I told you that was high, 38 grand. This is a modest area. $114 a square foot. I mean, you're not getting $38,000 for a pool. I might lean to the higher side here. Either way, let's look at it. How many statistics? I've got 8,368 pairs that went into that number. Those numbers, I should say. So I'm supported. Got my year built, 1,500. I'm good. Now, let's go back to what we said. I want you to go to add a variable. Here you go. Let's say you got that person, you know, they're just so proud that they paid, you know, they just bought the house 4 years ago, and you know what? They paid a $5,000 premium for that fireplace as an option. I want you to add a variable, fireplaces, and click update. Now, we got 390 sales or something in here so far. Now, most people will tell you, oh, in any method, you get that many sales, you're going to be able to solve an awesome numbers for everything. A lot of times you can, not always. Now, I've done this on this one. That's how I know what it's going to come out. But let's go ahead and add in this fireplace and see what happens. Okay. You want a simple way to identify the punk kid on the playground? Now, we had everybody else on. They were playing on the seesaws, the horses. They were running around on the swing set, everybody. And then all of a sudden, fireplaces entered the schoolyard, and he just starts messing up the apple cart. Look, he zapped our garage bay adjustment down to nothing. He's nothing. I mean, yeah, he just started screwing up the whole party. So you can either get rid of the punk, kick him, kick him like the ninja, or let me just show you what you can't do in any regression platform. So let's say you go into Marshall and Swift. You pull up the low end of your fireplace, $2,500. Let's say you add your local multiplier, your national multiplier, and then you depreciate it, a depreciated cost of the item. And let's say that it ends up coming out after multipliers and the depreciation, $2,500. You put in $2,500 in that initial box, and I want you to change your strategy to adjust only. Now, you and I both know as appraisers, I'm a 15, 18-year-old property. If I took a fireplace adjustment from Marshall & Swift or Craftsman Source, whichever you use, and apply my multipliers, and I depreciate it out, $2,500 is probably a pretty good spot-on number. So I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to solve for this, and I'll explain it in my addendum where I did it, but I want to build it into my model because this lady made a big deal about it, and I'm going to give her some credit, and I'm going to have to show that my source is cost because it obviously didn't render a good number statistically in the model. So after you do that $2,500 and adjust only, we clicked update. We're just going to wait. Okay, guys. Now look at this. Now I just told you that you built into your model this 2,500. Anywhere it encountered it in this data set, it applied 2,500 for a difference. So there, it accounted for it in every one of these variables. But what ended, and I told you that's a credible number because if I actually did a depreciated cost, I'd probably get around that number. What did it do? Our bathrooms were relatively unchanged. Why do you think that is? I'll tell you why. Because this number's credible. That's why. Look at that garage bay adjustment. It didn't even move a penny. It stayed at 10,000. My gated, Still on the upper side, I can cover that 10,000. Livable area shaved, 80 cents a square foot or $1. But for the most part, all of these adjustments stayed the same. And we built in a fireplace into the whole model, meaning everywhere it was encountered, it solved for it with my number. Anywhere it encountered, and I assure you probably half of these records didn't have one, half did. It encountered that. It built that in the model. You can't do this anywhere else. And you have total support. We know that extracting adjustments is one way to get an adjustment, but we also know that depreciated cost is totally a reasonable way. You may have a 4,000 square foot workshop on a property, and you're not going to be able to extract that out of the market, but you could apply a depreciated cost adjustment. You may encounter one of those comps in your custom market that has one of those, and you may have no choice but to use a depreciated cost to extract it out, or at least build it into your model. That's something you have the power at your hands to do. Alternatively, we could have put solve fully with a 2,500. Now that's going to prime at 2,500 for the fireplace. Now that doesn't mean that it's going to end up at 2,500, because it's still going to go through the paired sales and the iterative method, and it's still going to solve, but it's going to start at 2,500. Now that doesn't put a static number in there. Adjust only does. Now prime, you might say, well, I like the prime because I still go through the process even though I start with the number I supplied. But solve, in cases of bathrooms, guys, if you get a goofy bathroom adjustment, there's nothing wrong. Those are the variables that we have at our fingertips with cost approach specifically that we can easily solve for. Number of fixtures, depreciated out by the number of years that you say effectively, after your multipliers and all that stuff, and there's your bath, and that's a reasonable way to support it. So don't be afraid. Now by doing that, you can see that it ended up taking it down to nothing hardly. Bath stayed on hardly untouched. That garage bay is totally hanging tough, and everything else is pretty similar. So you just don't get a fireplace adjustment on this way. And the stats tab is not working on fireplace, and I'll figure that out. But anyways, guys, that's what I wanted to show you. Now, listen, let's go to the Define Adjustment page real quick, because I want to show you, oh no, I primed it. I changed it, darn it. You guys stay on the the Validate Adjustments page, if you will. I'm just going to run this really quick, and we're almost out of here, guys. Just bear with me. I don't want to cut you off too short before I show you this, because this is important. If you have literally 3 or 4 minutes more and you can hold on to it, please do, because I mean it's important. I don't want you to ever walk around using this tool without knowing things that are important, and this is an important one. I'm going to go back to fireplace, and I'm going to adjust it only. And as soon as mine loads up, I'm going to go to the Define Adjustment page. And we're going to make it real quick when we get there. When mine loads up, if you guys are on the Define Adjustment page, I just want you to click Save and lock in all the the central points. We're not even going to change. So I'm going to go to Define Adjustments. And I'm almost done, guys. Thank you for letting me bleed over just a couple minutes. I just don't want you to miss. This is kind of important. It's important because I don't want you to encounter it and be confused on what to do, whereas I could just go over it with you now. So I'm locking in my adjustments, saving them, and it's going to probably take a good amount of time for the validation page to load up, and that's because those histograms, you saw livable area. It was literally built off of 70,000 something records or something crazy. So, I mean, making those histograms takes a little bit of resource. So we're almost there. Okay, so here, very important. I appreciate you guys holding on. I saw a few people exit, and I just wanted to make sure that the majority of you, that's why I made that comment, and everybody stayed after that, so thank you. But you will see fireplaces now, guys, is a green histogram. Or, excuse me, green box. There's no histogram because you can't make a histogram when you solve for something. The histogram only applies to the recorded, extracted adjustments for that variable. So there's not going to be any because we built into the model a static number. But I want to show you so that it's green. There's nothing wrong. Green is go. Red is no. But I want to tell you that at the very bottom now there's a comment that says manual adjustments. Not just your analysis model comment, but this one says the analysis includes one or more variable which the appraiser specified exact values. These values have been found to be credible in the market using other methods. When you solve only, adjust only I should say, first of all you want to use it sparingly. If you can find the data statistically in the data, awesome, that's better. Now if you need to solve adjust only, that's fine. But when you encounter this, do yourself a favor, your end user a favor, and everybody else involved in the process. Take 2 minutes and write out your cost source, what your multipliers were, how you depreciate it down. Just explain to them where you came up with that $2,500. And by letting them know that, now you've built in that $2,500 adjustment all the way through your model, which is just extremely powerful. So again, guys, you know what? It's absolutely a pleasure to do this stuff with you. You know, we've got some users that are struggling. It's just a matter of stretching those statistical muscles out. It's a process. I assure you, any method is a process, and this is no different. You're not going to spend a whole lot of time getting used to it. What you do have to not be afraid of is not looking at things that jump off the page, not being afraid to touch those tolerances. Play around. Look at your data. If you have too wide of variances, if you've got your data set going from $60 a square foot to $400 a square foot, you're going to have a problem because you've got too big a deviations in your data. You don't have comparable data. You know, you need to experiment on the analysis that you're not under pressure to deliver tomorrow. You know, don't try to crank out an analysis of support on one that you need to deliver in an hour. You give yourself a time. Start off on the easiest areas that you can. If you can locate a tracked environment that you have access to in your database, start off where you have healthy sets of data. Why? Typically the law of numbers. You know, the more data you have, the easier for you to get comfortable with playing. You start off with smaller sets of complicated data, and they can be solved too. You have all the tools at your disposal. They just take a little bit more engagement and a little bit more intuition on your part. But you're the professional. You're in control. Your model, your rules. You can communicate that. No robo-computer is ever going to take away the professionalism of an appraiser, and never going to be able to match it. So you guys take stock in that. You know, show your work. We've got the tools now. You've got this program. There's other methods out there, other platforms out there. We're entering a space where you got to do statistical comprehensive analysis on market environments. You just can't say that, well, I did paired sales and this is where I got the adjustment, because they're judging you against a model, an automated regression model that I don't find highly attractive in any way, unless it agrees with me. And unless it agrees with you. And then, of course, we'll say, well, the model's pretty good. But if you don't have, in the absence of data that shows you did an analysis, they're just going to assume they're right and you're wrong. But in fact, if you include this in your report, they stamp off that their model's wrong and you're right. And that's how it should be. So thank you guys very much for coming. We're here for you. We appreciate it. Keep coming back as many times as you want. Just engage. Dive in. We're confident that once you see the power at your fingertips, you're just gonna fall in love with the platform. It's a process. Don't give yourself a hard time. Just stay engaged. Thanks.